So welcome to episode 2 of Ghost in the Machine. The last one took place about 2 years ago. So
Doing good.
yeah, geologically speaking, we're
Hasn't
moving
been any
right along.
music in the last 2 years, so this makes perfect sense.
And we haven't aged today.
No, and my internet is working this time.
We just upgraded our internet.
Yes,
The guys came and gave us new routers. So yeah.
it's supposedly faster, but
Yeah.
You look clear to me.
it works for me.
So I am Dennis Feeney, and this is my lovely wife, Heather. And we are joined by our dear friend and brother from another mother, Joe Zank.
Yeah, good to be here. Thanks for having me, both of you.
Welcome.
And we are going to refresh the show. And the goal is to have more than one episode every 24 months. That is the goal.
It's a high bar.
We're once every quarter
Yeah, fiscal
to start, and then you can
I think that's very doable.
build
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah. Even if we do one per season. I kind of like that.
Well, that's kind of a quarter anyway.
It is a quarter. Never mind.
3 months.
May I ask a question before we start?
Yes.
Heather, I know that's Latin. Can you explain your shirt to me?
Here, you can see the back. Can you read it?
Oh, I love that. That is so beautiful.
Science without art is nothing.
And I knew Neil asked,
Yeah.
But okay, I
it's
love what it says. I love that idea.
Yeah, it's the motto of my father's college, the Milwaukee School of Engineering, which is where he got
I
his
didn't know that.
degree. Yeah,
That's cool. MSOE. Yeah.
yeah, and they have quite a I guess extensive art museum there, which is a collection of artwork, paintings mainly of people doing work. So they want to show the students that, like, yeah, you're going to do your work and you're studying, but you also, I mean, first of all, that's worthy of being depicted in art. And also it is art, and you need to have art around, even if you're doing highly technical stuff. Because when my dad was there, the slide rule was the big thing, and computers were just getting started. And now, they're all into high tech and who knows, quantum computing. I have no idea what all this stuff does, but yeah, I thought it was cool.
Well, I think it's not only cool, but I think it's appropriate for what we're doing tonight.
Yeah, that's why I chose it. Well, sort of. I was getting dressed this morning and I thought, oh, look, I'll put this t-shirt on. It's clean. And I'm like, those are I won't have to change later. So anyway, yes. Okay.
So we're gonna I'd like to start our discussion tonight with a couple blessings from one of my favorite authors, and he's a poet. He was an Irish mystic named John O'Donohue. And I think these two blessings from his book, To Bless the Space Between Us, awesome book, as all of his writings are. I think they're very apropos. The first one is entitled For Light. Light cannot see inside things. That is what the dark is for. Minding the interior, nurturing the draw of growth through places where death, in its own way, turns into life. In the glare of neon times, let our eyes not be worn by surfaces that shine with hunger made attractive. That our thoughts may be true light, finding their way into words, which have the weight of shadow to hold the layers of truth. That we never place our trust in minds claimed by empty light, where one-sided certainties are driven by false desire. When we look into the heart, may our eyes have the kindness and reverence of candlelight, that the searching of our minds be equal to the oblique. Crevices and corners where the mystery continues to dwell, glimmering in fugitive light. When we are confined inside, their dark house of suffering, that moonlight might find a window. When we become false and lost, that the severe noon light would cast our shadow clear. When we love, that dawn light would lighten our feet upon the waters. As we grow old, that twilight would eliminate treasury in the fields of memory. And when we come to search for God, let us first be robed in night, put on the mind of morning, to feel the rush of light spread slowly inside, the color and stillness of a found world. Yeah, so Heather, you're going to help us with a discussion about what the term ghost in the machine is, and that we're kind of co-opting that for like how U2 stole the song Helter Skelter back from Charles Manson.
We're stealing it back.
That's right.
It's cultural appropriation, and it's perfectly appropriate.
That's right. That's right.
This day and age. Well, the phrase "ghost in the machine" is sort of entered into, I guess, language, academic terminology. When a book by that name, or a collection of essays by that name, was published by a British philosopher, Gilbert Ryle, in 1949. And the term was not, he didn't use that term favorably. He was using it as a critique or a criticism of what he called a dogma of dualism that he traced back to French philosopher René Descartes. As an aside, not surprising that a British person thinks a French person is the source of Europe. And this was not, this was a dogma, which is not considered good. And something, just received and people believe it and it's unexamined. Ryle thought it was wrong. It was a category error, which is what philosophers call things that are like almost beyond. It's so wrong, you don't even know where to start saying what's wrong with it. And the reason he used ghost in the machine as the description of this dogma of Descartes, who was probably most famous, at least in regular discussions, for the phrase "I think, therefore I am," as an expression of what it means to be or be alive, is that the very statement there kind of sets up this dualism between a person's mind, our minds and our bodies, and that they're separate, and somehow the mind is like inside the body and makes it work. And Ryle's characterization of that was that there's a ghost in a machine, and that he just couldn't imagine how that would be a satisfying description of a human person and of life, and especially a life that encouraged or included intellectual activity and physical activity. So that was 1949 when he kind of popularized this phrase and used it again in a kind of derogatory way about some philosophical concepts that had been around for a while. Descartes was active in the 18th century, so you may have that date wrong, but it was a while. Then there was another book by another, he was a naturalized British citizen, born in Hungary, I think. Arthur Kessler published a book in 1967, and it was called Ghost in the Machine. And I think, without having any evidence to base this on, that book is probably the one that Gordon Sumner, who we know as Sting, would have heard that phrase being written in 1967. He was and probably picked that book up. Kessler was a British citizen by that time. Anyway, his book, Kessler's book, and the use of that phrase as its title and the contents of the book were, to oversimplify it, trying to argue against or counter some of the ideas of B.F. Skinner, the leading proponent of behaviorism. And that's a very deterministic, mechanistic philosophy about why people are the way we are, why we do things. And Kessler's book was exploring people's self-destructive and violent tendencies. He didn't like the way Skinner accounted for that, and was looking for a way to have another explanation for it. Perhaps not as kind or forgiving, but at least there was room for people's mental and emotional activities in there, and not completely deterministic like behaviorists.
Well, that dualistic part you're talking about earlier.
Yeah, exactly. And so that is, again, 1967. That book was more of a popular work. Kessler wasn't an academic, but he was kind of a social critic, a writer, as people could still be in the 50s and 60s, I guess, in that post-war period. Anyway, so that's where the phrase kind of comes into, at least English usage. But of course, that term ghost brings us to think of, or brings people who are somewhat philosophical of mind to think of German philosophy and the spirit of the word Geist, which is spirit in German. And German philosophy is, I guess, again, grossly oversimplifying, but much more concerned with, and especially in the Romantic era, the 19th century, this concept of spirit. So we have mind and body, and trying to figure out, for philosophers, who's the pilot there, who's running the show, which is the dominant or more defining part of being a human being, and how does each of those parts account for what people do and how we think and how we live. And then this idea of spirit is kind of a third leg of the stool, so to speak. And in general, it seems like German philosophers were a little more concerned about that aspect of being human. Not to say other philosophers were not thinking about it, and they didn't necessarily mean it in a religious sense, but it could be thought of that way, I guess, by people who were, had faith commitments or spiritual commitments. But that's how it gets at the idea of, Christians used to say Holy Ghost. It's because in Geist is the term for spirit. Now we say Holy Spirit. And so that's the concept of spirit. So
which German philosophers would have been at the head of that romantic, taking a look at that Geist?
Hegel.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's, he's got his whole Hegelianism is a whole thing now. And then there were, subsequent philosophers, early 20th century, and then particularly during the war period and after, French philosophy, post-structuralism, and those kind of things. They could really care less about mind-body dualism or spirit. They were concerned with language and how the terminology of language and how language got built, and then we get into things like, hierarchies and power structures and things like that. But so a lot of this is this, to again oversimplify, you've got English philosophy, French philosophy, and then German philosophy, and they're always competing with each other the same way they did in political and geopolitical and international affairs and economics as well. So They were always arguing and they always wanted to distinguish themselves from each other. But they're reacting to each other as well. So that's where the phrase comes from. And then people in this conversation right now became familiar with it. I speak for myself, but I think probably for you too, with the album title From the Police.
Absolutely for me. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and then they also have the song, which I don't think is on that album. It's on the one before.
Huh?
Spirits of the Material World. Is that
Oh.
on Ghost in the Machine? Or is it on is that
I'm
the
not
one
sure.
prior to that? Anyway,
Yeah.
should have looked that up. But that's for you guys to discuss. So that's kind of, just where the term comes in. Again, this is oversimplifying what I found on Wikipedia. So, that is to be taken for what it's worth. But that's my little, tiny nutshell, not even a walnut shell. Let's go with the pistachio
I love this.
version.
But that's helpful. That's helpful to give us an idea of
Absolutely.
where we're
Yeah.
coming from and what surrounds us.
And the crossover between something pretty dry and scholarly and what is now
Yeah.
popular culture.
Yep.
But isn't that Sting,
Yes. Yes, it is.
former
Absolutely.
English teacher? He's kind of intellectual,
Yeah.
likes to do that.
And the way we're looking at it is the idea that the Holy Spirit, finds ways to reach us despite all of the, maybe despite is too hard of a term, too tough of a term, but amid, yeah, amid, I like amid the all of the stuff that we construct, right? Ways to make life easier or whatever.
But ends up making it harder.
Can sometimes, yes, make it harder. And in the tagline for this episode, I said, that it's a way to discuss how the Holy Spirit reaches us. For example, through song, the Holy Spirit makes its way through the the music industry and all that entails to bring us a song like what we're like last time that we talked about, Prayer for the Dying by Seal. If you haven't watched that episode, I suggest you do. It's really good.
Please do. 2 years old, but still just right there.
Yes, exactly. And that is up on the YouTube channel now. And the song we're going to talk about this evening, Look How Far by Bruce Cockburn. So, and you like that. I know you like that song.
Yes, but I'm going to leave it to you to discuss it.
Okay.
One fewer hole for the Spirit to come.
Well,
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
And these aren't real glasses, by the way. These are those ones we put on to block the blue light.
Well, they're real.
Well, they are. Yes, their material is real. They're not a figment of my imagination. They're not corrective lenses. I have
They
those.
look very studious.
Yes.
I mean, so
Well,
you're not
yeah,
like-
they put some color on my face. I look like I'm like 10 years older than I really am.
Oh,
So
you're very
anyway,
beautiful.
you don't have to say that. End scene. So you can edit. Here, I'll move this out of the
When I was getting ready for our discussion, I printed the lyrics. I've listened to this. I've owned the CD. I've listened to this song since it came out. It was released in 1999 on Breakfast in New Orleans, Dinner in Timbuktu.
That is such a Bruce Cockburn title.
It is.
And I can just hear him saying it.
Yes.
3 a.m. New Orleans.
That's right. Yeah, the yeah, he's one of a kind, you know.
Yes, fantastic.
Yes. And such a great song and such a great album. There's just, like I was going back through and listening to the whole album again, and it's just like great song after great song, Um,
In the nineties, he put out Dark to
oh,
the Heart,
yes,
Charity of Night,
yes,
Breakfast in New Orleans. I'm like, boom, boom,
yeah,
boom, home runs. I'm like, those are incredible.
incredible albums. Yeah. And he just released a brand new studio album, which I have not gotten yet. It literally just um uh was released, I think definitely within the last couple weeks. So
Wow,
yeah,
haven't listened to it.
yeah. So I'm definitely gonna check it out. Um so yeah, 1999, right before the turn of the century to Y2K. Heather and I had just gotten married. We had got married the year before, 1998. And so the album's 24 years old now, because we're about to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary
That'll be this September.
in September. Very good. Yeah. And you and Renee have been married for how long?
Ray and I are at 27 and a half.
Wow,
We were 95.
that's awesome. And so like digging into the song a little bit. Okay, so we talked about the title of the album. And one of the things that grabs me about this song right away, well, of course, the music, his guitar picking is just so awesome.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Sets the mood.
Yep.
And then he comes in with he's not singing,
No,
spoken word, which is just, well, a lot of people refer to him equally as a musician and as a poet.
yeah,
You know,
I think that's very fair.
I think it's very fair. Yeah. Just, yeah, incredible. And so when he's doing spoken word, it works. It's seamless, and you don't even, like, I'm instantly pulled in.
Yep, yep. Because he's, especially, in things like this, because he's stating something that you can find yourself in.
Yes.
They're two friends with glasses of wine sitting there, having a conversation.
Yeah.
I've done that how many times? You've done that
Yes.
how many times? We've all have.
Yeah.
And we're right there with him.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really good point. That brings up something else I noticed, not to get too much like into the songwriting part of it, but we can certainly do that, because I love that. But I love how he pauses in between each phrase, giving each phrase time to resonate and to kind of land, and it gives the song a lot of space and a lot of breath, room for it to breathe, on this rooftop. And he stops where we're sitting in the rays of the setting sun. It's just like, and each of those, for me anyway, it does exactly what you were talking about. It just it reminds me of a time when I was doing that, and then what it also does is it kind of lays the groundwork for almost like the line in the little stanza in between, where he says, and there's a laugh hanging in the air,
Yeah.
and there's no desperation anywhere.
I love that line. What does that
Yes,
say to you? Because that line was one of my favorites.
yes. Yeah, and the whole song, it's unhurried, you just feel like,
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
the the pace and it's wonderful.
Well, I mean, your point is right, and I think that he's doing that for a purpose.
Yeah.
The song is 5.5 minutes long, and there's not a lot of lyrics within it.
That's true.
I mean, there's a lot of space, and it's unhurried. I love that idea that you're saying, Dennis. And again, he's setting not only the mood poetically and lyrically, but he's living it out. And I think that's what he's inviting us into in that same type of space. Now, we're going to get more into that as to why, I believe,
Yes.
later on.
Yeah.
But I think that whole idea is okay. He set the mood. We're sitting, be it on a rooftop in a backyard. I mean, it doesn't matter where we're sitting. We're sitting. We're sitting in the rays of the setting sun.
Yeah.
With a good friend, you name who that person is.
Sure.
And with 2 glasses of wine, and there's a laugh, as you said, hang in the air, and there is no desperation. There's no agenda. There's nothing else that's driving this right now.
And
it's
nowhere. It's like there's nowhere either person needs to be.
Nope, exactly. And there's nothing I need from you that is bringing me from this moment. There's nothing I'm trying to get from you or give to you to create this moment. This moment just is.
Yeah. Isn't that, dude, isn't that just talking about it? I'm just feeling the stress from the day for our anyone who may be watching. It's about 7:25 p.m. Monday night in Mountain Standard Time, and an hour later where Joe is in Central Time. And Mondays, right? And that is it can be rare, and unless we consciously make time to do exactly what you're describing.
Yes.
Is carve out time for those people in our lives that we love.
Yes.
And I think that is that's when, for me, that is a way for the spirit to reach me,
Now, I don't know if you read, Dennis. So when I did a little bit of research, I read a little bit about what inspired him to write this song. And it's exactly what you said, exactly what you just said.
Oh, wow.
So I don't know if you knew that, but he wrote it. Now I'm going to say it this way, and you can go and research, and I might say it a little poorly. But Annie DeFranco was coming through town giving a concert where Bruce was. And Bruce has always had an affinity for Annie and really enjoyed her, although they haven't spent much time together. And so he wrote it on the way going to see Annie. But the time together, like always, was fleeting. That they got there, they started to have this drink, but she needed to go to a sound check and he needed to go be somewhere else. And it was that longing to say, I know there's more of a friendship there, but time takes us away from that.
Yeah.
And he said, but it doesn't have to necessarily the song be about Annie DeFranco. He said, it could be about, and then he named other artists, T-Bone Burnett and Jackson Brown, people, again, he's like, we do this hundreds of times each year, but there are those people that we love and we believe, if only I took the time, or they took the time, or we were given that gift of time to sit, we know there would be a fast friendship there.
Yeah.
But we get caught up in whatever our day is and we miss it. We miss that gift.
Yes.
And so he's setting it up to say, let's not miss the gift. And this is how we have to do that.
Yes.
So he's showing us the way, even though he's like us,
Yeah.
that we constantly miss it. And we have these fleeting acquaintances and friendships that we know could be more, but that life or whatever our agendas are take us differently
Yeah.
in different directions.
Yeah. Hmm.
So I think you named it, my friend.
Yeah. Well, and that is something that, and it can be, man, all sorts of different stuff that pulls me in a bunch of different directions. And one thing that and I'll, we definitely get back to the lyrics, but one thing that I do every freaking New Year's Eve is, I'll write in my journal, what is something I want to um accomplish this year? What's a goal, right? Resolution. And I write it every year, because every year I find that I never really accomplish it the way I intend when it's New Year's Eve, and I've had a glass or two of champagne, and but it's this idea that making, like what we're talking about, making room for those things that matter. Great discussions with dear friends, sitting down and watching a great film, taking time to listen to not just, a portion of a song, but sit down and listen to an album, and then also taking time for reflection, for quiet, for solitude, for prayer. And I vow that I'm going to start doing more of that this year.
Can I jump in real quick?
This song will be our touchstone.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it, just while you're sitting there talking, it reminded me of one of the parables Jesus tells. And it's that famous parable where, the master, the mistress, whoever sets a banquet. And he tells the servants, go out and invite those who are bring in the guests who are invited. And the servants go out and they encounter these people and they say, hey, come to the banquet. It's all prepared. And one of them says, oh, I can't. I just got married and I have to tend to my spouse. Another says, well, I can't. I just bought a field. Or another says, I can't. I'm about, some business that I own. I got some cows, whatever it is. And so pray hold me excused, and then the parable goes on. But my point is, it's not bad things that keep us away from the banquet. It's normal things.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being married. There's nothing wrong with owning fields or businesses or cows or whatever that is. But if we let those things keep us from the banquet, which whatever relationship that is, whatever that moment is, because that's where the Spirit presents itself, is right here, right now, in this moment, in this time. And I can say this well, I don't practice it well, but I know that's true. If anything can keep us away from it, and it's normal things, it's not bad things, it's not some great big vice that we have. It's normal things that keep us away from saying yes to the moment. And what that parable is reminding us is, stop it. Yeah. It's okay to make sure we take time for the banquet because we're invited now.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah. Man, isn't that the truth? And I really
the song has set the table very well, but he's about to even amp it up more. As any good poet would.
Yes. And I love how you said that, it's a challenge. This is a challenge for you. I mean, it's a challenge for all of us. And I love how you point out and you're stressing that these things are not, a lot of times the stuff that takes us away, it's not bad stuff, you know.
No, sound checks, taking Annie DeFranco away are not bad things.
That's not a bad thing.
That's her livelihood.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the moment is gone.
Right. Yeah. And so he goes on, so many miles, so many doors, some need patience, some need force. And I'm reading it much faster than he sings it.
I know, but I love that line. I love that line.
Yes.
How do we know the difference? Which ones need patience and which ones need force?
Good Lord. Yeah. All fall open in their own due course to allow us this time.
To allow us this time.
Yeah.
You know, it's what we do with it is ours. The time is allowed and given to us. And he's going to make that more clear here in a second.
Yeah.
But what do we do?
Right.
What do we do?
Right. So many miles. I'm going to read this again. So many miles, so many doors. Some need patience, some need force. All fall open in their own due course to allow us this time. That's really, there's a lot to unpack. I mean, we could talk about that, just those 4 lines for an hour, right?
Nobody wants to sit here and listen to 2 yahoos unpack that line for an hour.
What I'm getting out of that, and I don't know if he intended this, but okay, I'll just speak for myself. I work hard at, here are the things in my life that I want to accomplish, and come hell or freaking high water, I'm going to work myself into a lather day after day trying to accomplish these things, or trying to get from point A to point B, or but then he comes for the second part of that. I'm going to call it a stanza. All fall open in their own due course to allow us this time. It's like you can set an intention. You don't have to force the outcome. It's like with prayer, right? Our priest was in a homily just yesterday, was talking about the difference between expectations and hope. And when you have an expectation, that's something that you're in a way, you grip, right? And you're holding on to that, and this is what I expect to happen. A hope is something very different. It can be. And I think there's a lot more room for God and the Holy Spirit to work within hope than within expectation.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, that's what I'm getting from that. Like, we can, with all the miles that we're covering, all the doors we're trying to get to open or close, I may sit there and tap my foot on some of them. I may try and bust through others. But if I just sit back, all fall open in their own due course to allow us this time. So, yeah.
Yeah. I love that image too. That image of and I love what you just said. Hey, buddy,
Aw,
that image of seasons, there's a season for everything.
yeah,
And no matter how much I want spring in the middle of winter, sometimes I just have to sit with winter, and let the gift of winter be there for me,
yeah,
or whatever that is, that and whatever season of my life, or whatever people are in there. And oftentimes I can try to be two places at once, that my mind will be elsewhere, even though I'm involved in a visit or with a friend or something right in front of me. And I like, again, what he's inviting us to here, is just saying, hey, um, things are going to happen in their own due time.
yeah,
Just allow it to be, and be present to it when it's right there in front of us.
yeah,
And that idea of when I have to, my mind is two places at once, or I want something else, it's not the season for it, but I want it now. I mean, I need to, and I hope others, I think I'm naming this truth for others too, but we have to look at ourselves and ask what's going on behind this desire. What's going on behind your desire to have these goals? Maybe they're good and holy, and um, are exactly where you need to be, but maybe some of it's driven by fear, or insecurity, or agenda, or
sure.
power, or my own ego, or whatever it is
Mhm.
that I need to feed.
Yeah,
And that's not, how do I get rid of that so I can be present to whatever season and moment is right here in front of me? Again,
yes,
he said earlier, there's no desperation here.
yeah,
There's no desperation. It's not about anything else.
hmm,
This is about the moment.
yes. And then he goes on, and you're limbed in light, golden and thin. Looks to me like you're lit up from within.
I mean, come on, dude. That's so good. How many times do you get to use the word limbed? Now, everybody, Limned. If you
Yes,
were saying right out there, you knew what it was, then you are like Heather Feeney or nobody else, because I had to look it up. I'm like,
I looked
what
it up.
does that mean? It had nothing to do with a B, Limb. There's no
No.
tree out here. Limned. Limned. I
Yes,
love that image, though.
yes.
Is
And
what he's
it's
saying. It's like you're
defined,
lit up from within.
yes, and it's defined as, so he says, yes, and you're limbed in light, golden and thin. Looks to me like you're lit up from within. And it's defined as to illuminate, to adorn or embellish with gold or bright color. And I like this one. This was like a subsequent definition, to paint in watercolor.
Ah, oh.
That's beautiful.
Well, and I would say, Fiend, now again, I don't mean to step on your toes if you're going somewhere here, but
No,
again, he's talking about, I see that almost in a sense, that aura around you, but it's like you're lit up from within as well. And that only happens. I don't mean to keep coming back and beating the same horse,
no,
but that only happens, right, when we take the moment and time to look in and really get to know another. Because then we see that light within them, right?
yeah,
Then we see that goodness shining through whatever, not perfection, not because we're not going to find that anywhere, but the goodness and the gifts that they carry in that space, in that person, in that moment. But
yeah,
only when we take the moment to grasp it and see it.
yes, yeah. I keep thinking about when we lived in Washington, D.C., and I'm gonna have to push pause on recording here pretty quick and get another.
Okay, remember, you got a Washington, D.C. story coming
up. And we moved out there, and I just finished recording that first album that I did with my dear friends Dave Eisenhower and Eric Hageman and Eric Amble. And it was, I wouldn't say that it was the kind of experience we're talking about now. Because I was hell-bent on that, getting that done, seeing it succeed. When we got out to DC, I was really pushing myself to make something happen. And I got in with the band. I drove those poor people crazy, because I was so many miles, so many doors. Some need patience, some need force, um and so what you were just saying, just that image, that anxiety, that the agenda that I had, just all of that just came kind of rushing back. And I was not allowing things to fall open in their own due course. And I was not taking the time to look at people and to see the light within, no. And after that, I swore, that is not how I'm going to approach something as beautiful as music,
As beautiful as so many things, although that's a great example.
Indeed, yes, indeed. Okay, so we now we get to the chorus.
Finally,
yes.
Probably 3 minutes into the song.
Yeah, like you're saying, it's over a 5-minute song. So again, that the pace is just, it's awesome. And look how far the light came, and he repeats that 3 times. Look how far the light came to paint you this way. And what an awesome image, and it just makes me think about like a ray of light starting at the sun and making its way across the galaxy, coming into the earth, hitting that moment where he and his friend are on the rooftop having a glass of wine. It illuminates them, and in the ray, going back to the first verse, sorry, in the rays of the setting sun, glasses of wine on a crate between us catch the light, seem to glow from within. And I've seen that. You've seen that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. More in a rosé or a perhaps a nice Pinot. Doesn't really work with white wine as much. I don't know. Maybe we could try. We'll try it next time we're together. We'll do it.
Well, may I jump in?
Yes, please.
So,
and I'm sure
again,
the people who are watching are like, yes, for God's sake, Joe.
But your point is tremendous. I think of that same idea of, you said, look how far the light has come. Look how far the light came. 186,000 miles per second from the sun during the day, or from the stars, millions of light years away, to shine on us now in this moment, whatever it is. And look all the work they did to be here.
Yeah.
So let's just enjoy what they've done to be here.
Yes.
But then I tie it to the end of the verse before. Remember where it says we're limned in that golden hue.
Yes.
Like, we see the aura, but it's like the light is coming from within. And again, I think it invites us to say, look at this person that you're with and how far they have come. Mm. And yes, the light's journey doesn't end when I see it. It has more of a journey to go. And this beautiful person and beautiful moment that I'm in, they're not done either. And they have further to go, but let's enjoy the space. Look how far that they have come. Look how far we have come. Look how far this relationship has come. Whatever it is, to set this up, and let's just acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Let's acknowledge that because it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yes. Yes.
To paint you this way. Didn't you say something about watercolors earlier, that limbed?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's illustrative, if that's
Illustrative.
illustrative. Thank you. of of what we were talking about with Heather, like the ghost in the machine and the spirit reaching us from far away.
Yep. Whatever that machine is. I loved your idea of the machine in the music industry and how the spirit can even work in that.
Yeah.
If the spirit can work in somebody as jumbled and messed up as me, the spirit can work in whatever relationship is happening or whatever moment there is or whatever political systems or economic systems or screwed up dysfunction my family may have or whatever that is, but that spirit can move within there.
Yes.
Like the light can, like whatever it is that illumines us, because really, let's be honest, it's that spirit that illumines us, right?
Yes.
That goodness.
Yes.
That
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And in my notes as I was preparing for our discussion, I just wrote, the light and the spirit travel an inconceivable distance to illuminate, nourish, inspire our lives and our souls.
Yep. Yep. And yup.
If we make time for it. And if we're not,
and sometimes whether we do or not, they're there. And I thank God for that. I think of Bono at the end of City of Blinding Lights, who says, blessings not just for the ones who kneel, luckily. And I'm like, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh
man.
Yeah.
And then do you want to read the next verse?
Of course. So then we get into the last two stanzas, to use the word Dennis used earlier, and then he repeats the chorus.
Yeah.
But the next stanza says this, and I picture us in this light, friendship a fine silver web, stretched across golden smoky haze. And this is simple, and this is grace.
I really
run. It's like, come on, man.
I think about that. There was a show. I cannot remember what it was, but David St. Hubbins was being interviewed.
That's Christopher Guest, man.
And he was somewhere, and oh shoot, I can't remember what it was. But he was talking about he had seen Ingrid Malmsteen play guitar, and he was just like, why continue? Why? I just want to take my guitar home and turn it into a coffee table, Just reading this stuff, it's just like, oh my God.
Oh gosh.
Hilarious. No, that is just beautiful, and this is simple, and this is grace. And that is in a similar place in the stanza as to the previous verses. All fall open in their own due course.
Yeah.
Catch the light, seem to glow from within. Yeah.
Well, and again, the imagery that he's using here to me is so poignant.
Yes.
Because he's talking about light and talking about grace. And so your point about the spirit, I mean, they're interchangeable here.
Yeah.
And the simplicity, this friendship stretch across this smoky haze, which is the dusk, the setting sun, the wine, the friendship, all of this, but it is simple and it is grace in the sense that, we often can fall into the trap that says heaven and grace or whatever are out there somewhere beyond, and we're going to go there and maybe at the end of my life. And what Cockburn is saying to us here, and what I think the mystics are saying, to use O'Donohue and others, are saying, no, it's here in this moment.
Yes.
We don't have to look for grace elsewhere, or the spirit elsewhere, or God's presence, or light, or life, or whatever that is, whatever word we want to coin that in. But it's saying it's simple, always simple, and it's present now. And we call that grace.
Dude,
stop the song right there, Bruce.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, he's got more to say.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. You want to read the next? I mean,
man, it's all you. Take us home.
And this light is a guest from far away.
Come on. I know. Come on. And this light is a guest from far away.
Yeah. Passing through the last whisper of day. And look how far the light came to paint you this way.
I am so glad you chose this song.
Oh, yeah.
Because it reintroduced it to me.
Mm.
And I just.
Well, and it's a deep cut. It's like it's the 9th song on the album. And I don't know if it was, I know he's played it live. I've seen him 3 times and I just cannot feel like saw him in Denver, saw him when we were in DC, and just recently saw him here in Boise. He played. He did not play it this time when we saw him. And I honestly, I can't for the life of me remember the other 2 shows. I mean, they were, a long time ago. But I'd love to hear it. Long way around the barn to say I would love to hear it perform it live.
Amen.
Yeah.
And I hope those of you, those tens who may listen to this,
not all at once.
And go out and listen to this song.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Because again, this is our interpretation. Art is far bigger. And if Cockburn would join us, and Bruce, if you're listening, please do. We'd love to have you. I would love to hear what he would have to say about it.
Oh man.
Because it's far more than I'm sure what you and I are saying.
Yeah.
But it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It is so beautiful.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
And this light is a guest. I that imagery of guest. That guest. Okay, forgive me, I'm going to bring up more scripture, but
please do, because that's exact. I think that's exactly where my heart.
I think of Abram/Abraham when he's sitting outside his tent and the 3 visitors come by and he runs out to them. He doesn't know who they are, even though we as Christians now look back and say, oh, it's the Trinity. I don't know if he knew they were angelic or just knew they were good people or whatever. They were guests. And he welcomed them. He ran to them and said, this is where you need to be. I mean, that idea of guest. And yet we have to open ourselves to that moment of welcome, to that moment of interchange and encounter. And Abram did, and the guests did, the 3 walking. That's so beautiful.
That is.
Look how far this guest from far away.
Oh,
passing through, like time is not static.
Yeah.
Passing through. And so what are we going to do with the moment that how many friendships do we have that we pass through and we think we're going to have time to catch up with them later in our life?
Right.
And we don't.
Yeah.
And they were wonderful people.
Yeah. Yes. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, the concept of guest and the Holy Spirit and making you're exactly right. Making time, going back to it, making time, making space for the Spirit, because the Spirit is right here with us, just like light is radiating through, our lives and through us. And but it's here, it's now, it's just, we have to just recognize it, make time for it. And whether that is an encounter through great music, great discussion with a dear friend,
Mhm.
with watching a film, going to see live music, reading, a great book. Yeah. Well, we want to keep this, we could keep going. I could keep going, but we do want to be respectful of reality and how much time people can actually dedicate to watching a video log, a vlog.
Can I say a couple of things, Dennis, as
Please.
we get ready to close? The first is,
Yeah.
hey, there are people I'm sure watching who think they should do this song. Send it to Dennis, man.
Yes.
Let him know and let us put that on there for consideration. We would dig that,
Absolutely.
And the other thing I would say would be, I do a podcast as well. It's called Cup of Joe, and I do a weekly gospel reflection, and so you're welcome to listen to that as well. So
yeah, and I can vouch for the awesomeness of Cup of Joe. It is to say it is a morning pick-me-up would be a terrible pun, but it is absolutely that. And it is an afternoon pick-me-up. But anytime you need, it's great. And I commend you for continuing to do it, and it's dude, it's awesome.
Thank you, man. 3+ years, started during the beginning of the pandemic, and still moving.
That's awesome. Yeah, I hope you don't quit anytime soon. So we're going to wrap up with another blessing by John O'Donohue, and then we will be back. We're gonna pick another song, and we'll be back. I like the idea of like once a season.
Yep.
So yeah, like in about let's give ourselves like 3 months, and we'll be back. And I love it.
I do too.
So this blessing is titled For Friendship. May you be, and I have not read this out loud before. And so I have the tendency, especially after a couple pints of Guinness, to get, depending on what I'm talking about and who I'm talking with, to get a little choked up at times. So if I do that,
well, I think the title is so appropriate to what we were just saying. So this is fantastic.
It is, yeah. So for friendship, may you be blessed with good friends and learn to be a good friend to yourself, journeying to that place in your soul where there is love, warmth, and feeling. May this change you. I'm going to start again. See, this is what I was talking about. Just like John O'Donohue, God, he just gets me.
So good.
Yeah,
Well,
so
you
good.
speak in your language, you Irishman.
That's that's okay. I'll start again. Okay, for friendship. May you be blessed with good friends and learn to be a good friend to yourself. Journeying to that place in your soul where there is love, warmth, and feeling. May this change you. May it transfigure that what is negative, distant, or cold within your heart. May you be brought into real passion, kindness, and belonging. May you treasure your friends. May you be good to them, be there for them, and receive all the challenges, truth, and light you need. May you never be isolated, but know the embrace of your Anam Cara. So, well, cheers. Sláinte.
Gotcha.
And we will see you again on the next episode.
Thank you for being with us, my friends.
Yes, thank you for being with us, and we'll see you again on the next episode of Ghost in the Machine.